Your loved one was calm. That is the word the nurses used when you called to check in. And calm felt like good news, so you did not ask what calm meant or what it cost. If something about how your loved one seemed in those last months or years still does not fully add up, what follows is one part of the explanation. Pharmaceutical companies paid more than $5.7 billion in federal and state settlements for illegally pushing antipsychotic drugs into nursing homes across the country. Not to treat illness, to sedate residents when there were not enough staff to manage them any other way. The system is not designed around your loved one's comfort and safety. It is designed around a staffing math that makes chemical sedation cheaper than hiring more people. By the end of this video, you will know the one federal database you can search right now to see whether your loved one's facility is using antipsychotic drugs above the national average, and what to do if it is. The drugs at the center of this are atypical antipsychotics: Risperdal, Zyprexa, Seroquel, Depakote. Serious psychiatric medications developed for schizophrenia and bipolar disorder, carrying black box warnings from the Food and Drug Administration, the government's strongest warning category, stating that these drugs make elderly patients with dementia 60 to 70% more likely to die compared to patients given a placebo. That finding is on the label of every one of these medications. Nursing homes gave them to residents who had no psychiatric diagnosis because a sedated resident requires fewer staff. Johnson & Johnson, headquartered in New Brunswick, New Jersey, built an entire sales infrastructure around this fact. Beginning in May of 1998 and running through November of 2005, the company's subsidiary, Janssen Pharmaceuticals, created a unit they called the Elder Care Sales Force, assigned specifically to nursing homes and targeting residents with dementia. The sales force paid kickbacks to pharmacists at Omnicare, the largest nursing home pharmacy chain in the country, headquartered in Cincinnati, Ohio. The kickbacks were disguised as grants and educational funding to get Risperdal prescribed in facilities where residents were unlikely to object. The Department of Justice announced a $2.2 billion settlement with Johnson & Johnson on November 4, 2013, in the Eastern District of Pennsylvania. Janssen pleaded guilty to misdemeanor misbranding. They ran the math, calculated what the nursing home market was worth, and hired people specifically to open it. They wrote the sales force into the organizational chart. Eli Lilly, headquartered in Indianapolis, Indiana, ran the same operation with Zyprexa. Internal training materials reviewed during federal proceedings showed that sales representatives used a slogan to describe their nursing home strategy: 5 at 5. 5 milligrams of Zyprexa at 5 in the evening. Residents would be sedated before the overnight shift began. The January 15, 2009 settlement totaled $1.415 billion, including what was then the largest individual corporate criminal fine in United States history, $515 million. The evening shift started. The residents were quiet. Nobody had to do anything. Abbott Laboratories, headquartered in Abbott Park, Illinois, discontinued clinical trials on Depakote for dementia patients in 1999 after finding adverse events including drowsiness, dehydration, and loss of appetite. Then Abbott trained a specialized sales force to market Depakote to nursing homes off-label anyway from 1998 through 26, settling with the Department of Justice in 2012 for $1.5 billion. AstraZeneca, headquartered in London with major United States operations in Wilmington, Delaware, settled for $520 million in 2010 for illegally marketing Seroquel to nursing homes and elderly patients. Omnicare, the Cincinnati pharmacy chain that served as the distribution network for multiple illegal campaigns, paid $98 million in 2009 and $28 million in 2016. That is where the $5.7 billion figure comes from. It is what the government recovered. It is not what families lost. The Office of Inspector General of the Department of Health and Human Services published report OEI-07-20-00500 in November of 2022, examining prescribing patterns from 2011 through 2019. 80% of long-stay nursing home residents received a psychotropic drug during that period. The Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, based in Baltimore, Maryland, reported that its national partnership to improve dementia care had reduced antipsychotic rates from 23.9% to 14.5%. Progress, they said. The OIG looked at what happened alongside that reduction. Anticonvulsant prescriptions rose from 28% to 40% of residents over the same period. Unsupported schizophrenia diagnoses increased by 194%, concentrated in 99 specific nursing homes. Facilities were assigning schizophrenia diagnoses to residents with no psychiatric history, so those residents' antipsychotic prescriptions would not count against the facility's star rating. The part of this most people miss is not that the antipsychotic rate went down. It is that the schizophrenia diagnosis rate went up 194% at the same time, because that tells you the reduction was a paperwork exercise, not a clinical one. If someone in your family is navigating any of this right now, consider subscribing. This channel publishes investigations like this regularly, and the next one covers something that affects an even larger number of families than what we have covered today. When you read through the full OIG report alongside the settlement records, what stands out is not the scale of the prescribing. It is the consistency of the pattern across companies, decades, and regulatory responses. The pharmaceutical companies needed a large, captive market. The nursing homes needed a staffing substitute. The OIG confirmed directly that facilities with lower registered nurse ratios showed consistently higher psychotropic drug use. The drug replaces the staff. The staff cost goes down. The bill goes to Medicare. The FDA issued its first black box warning in 2005. Johnson & Johnson's elder care sales force had been operating since 1998. The prescribing continued after the warning. The OIG found the pattern persisted for 2 full decades. That is not a coincidence. That is a business model. This returns to the resident described as calm. What the federal record shows is that calm, in a substantial number of cases, was a purchased outcome, built on kickbacks, false diagnoses, and a staffing gap the facilities had already decided was acceptable. Everything before this point is what the industry calculated your family would never connect. What follows is what a complete understanding of this record makes it possible for you to do now. The federal database referenced at the opening of this video is Care Compare, operated by the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. It publishes antipsychotic prescription rates for every Medicare and Medicaid certified nursing home in the country, searchable by facility name or zip code. First, search Care Compare for your loved one's facility and find the percentage of long-stay residents receiving antipsychotics. Compare it to the national and state averages displayed on the same page. 10 minutes, no cost. A rate significantly above average is a documented risk flag. Second, request a complete medication list in writing from the facility. You are legally entitled to this under the Nursing Home Reform Act. Note every psychotropic medication, including anticonvulsants like Depakote and antipsychotics like Risperdal, Seroquel, or Zyprexa. Allow 2 to 3 days, no cost. Third, ask the prescribing physician in writing to provide the specific clinical diagnosis justifying each psychotropic on the list. A legitimate response names a diagnosis, a documented history, and a dated assessment. A response describing only behavioral management without a named diagnosis is evidence the drug is functioning as a staffing tool. No cost. Fourth, ask the facility in writing whether your loved one carries a schizophrenia diagnosis, when it was first documented, and by which physician. A recent diagnosis with no prior psychiatric history attached to an antipsychotic prescription matches the specific pattern the OIG flagged in 99 facilities. Document the response. Fifth, if medications appear to be used for behavioral management rather than clinical treatment, file a complaint with your state's long-term care ombudsman program. Federally required in every state, independent of the facilities it oversees, and at no cost to you. Federal regulations under Title 42, Section 483.45 also require a licensed consultant pharmacist to review each resident's drug regimen monthly. Request that review in writing. If the facility cannot produce it, that is a compliance violation. This full protocol requires 3 to 4 hours. The average nursing home costs $7,000 to $9,000 per month. A month of care built on a sedation substitution is a month your family paid for something other than care. This is not medical advice. Consult your loved one's physician before changing any medications. Before this video, the pharmaceutical industry was counting on your family to read the word calm in a nursing note and stop there. You now know that more than $5.7 billion in settlements document what calm actually cost. You know the schizophrenia diagnosis shell game exists and what it conceals. You know which database shows the antipsychotic rate at your loved one's facility and what to do if the number is wrong. Drop a comment if this matches what you have been experiencing, because the pattern of what families are going through is part of the story this channel is trying to document. If this video gave your family something they needed, subscribing ensures you will have the same information advantage the next time a decision like this comes up. Every upload covers something the industry counts on families not knowing.